5 to 7.
5 to 7 minutes. Sorry.
Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Here we are into February, and so far this year, this winter, we haven't heard a whole lot about the flu. It's been actually really quiet, which is a really good thing. Compared to last year, remember the big H1N1 scare, and everybody had to get your vaccine, get your flu vaccine. We actually had pods set up in Dickinson. Everyone was encouraged to get vaccinated. And so now, but this year it's a little quiet, and the subject might have been kind of forgotten or shoved to the side, like tends to happen. But today I'm going to talk about vaccines and why we should not forget about them, and what they have done for us. First, just a little bit of history. Vaccines were, the first vaccine was actually in 1796. Some of you may or may not know it was Edward Jenner. He introduced the smallpox vaccine. About 100 years later, then we had the rabies vaccine. And then in about the early 1900s, the diphtheria and tetanus vaccine came on the market. And then in the 50s, we had the polio. And then in 1960, we had measles. And then what happened about the mid-80s to 2000, we had an influx of new vaccines. And this was largely due to advances, major advances, scientifically and technologically. Of course, along with the big influx of vaccines, vaccines became quite controversial, or started becoming quite controversial because of the new influx. And I'm going to just discuss some of the factors that have contributed to this controversy of vaccinations. One of the first factors would be that people are questioning the safety. Are vaccines, are they safe? Actually, vaccines are very safe. They are continually being monitored all the time as they're put out. They're always monitored. But like any medication, they do have side effects. The most common side effects of vaccines are usually a sore arm or a low-grade fever. Serious adverse effects are really rare. And actually they are so rare that it's almost impossible to be accurately measured, some of those risks, because they're not common enough. The result of the scientific advances is for purer, safer vaccines. 30 plus years ago, children had 7 vaccines scheduled. And in those 7 vaccines, bacterial and viral proteins contained in those 7 were 3,000 plus. Today, children have 14 vaccines, and in those 14 vaccines, the total number of proteins is about 150. So through constant research and constant development, we are making them pure. They are safe. The other concern was the chemical additives, the metal and the mercury. The chemical additives in vaccines is very minimal. It's basically a preservative that has been tested to be safe. As far as the mercury in a vaccine is called ethyl mercury, and that's not the kind that is built up in your body to harmful levels. That is methyl mercury. And furthermore, in 2001, ethyl mercury has been removed from childhood vaccines, so it's really no longer a safety concern. A second factor contributing to the controversy of vaccines is that immunization has been successful. It's been so successful that we have a low perceived risk of complications from infectious diseases. We have people in us, we have no experience with the serious communicable diseases. We only read about things like bubonic plague, or we read about the Spanish flu. We have no concept of what it's like to be exposed to something that devastating because our immunizations have been so successful. In fact, some people have come to believe that diseases have been eradicated. Smallpox has been eradicated. However, diseases still exist. They have not been eradicated. In fact, measles is still the leading cause of preventable deaths worldwide. In 2006, there were 20 million cases of measles worldwide. 240,000 of those resulted in death. In 2008, in the United States, we had 132 measles cases. And while that might not sound like a lot, 92% of those cases were in unvaccinated people. Now, if you know about math a little bit, and you can take exponentially what would happen if we stopped immunizing against the measles, what would happen exponentially. A third contributing factor is that the new vaccine schedule is more complicated. 30 plus years ago, we had 7 vaccines for children, which resulted in about 5 shots. Today, there are 14 childhood vaccinations, which is about 24 shots by the time they are age 2. This is more complicated both for parents and for healthcare providers, both. But what have vaccines done for us, really? Aside from smallpox being pretty much eradicated, prior to vaccines, polio would paralyze 10,000 children in the U.S. per year. Measles would affect 4 million children, killing 3,000. Diphtheria would be one of the most common causes of death in school-age children. In influenza, each year approximately 200,000 people are hospitalized from influenza, and 36,000 die from influenza-related complications. So why get vaccinated too? One other thing to point out is very, very important to know is something called community immunity. Community immunity is basically herd immunization. The more that are immunized, the more that are protected indirectly from those who are immunized. So community immunity, it works only when the vast majority is immunized. And it's used really only for diseases transmitted person to person. But it is something to think about. If you are immunized, then it helps protect the rest of your community. With that, I'm not here to say just here to give information on this and what they've done for us. I also have, because we are adults, just a little information if you think you need to be up to date, or how to be up to date, or what to do. Okay.
Thank you, sir.